Hey guys, welcome to episode number 7 of the Hero's Journey podcast. Today I'm joined by a very exciting guest. His name's Howard Snooks. Howard, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, thanks.
Awesome. Well, you are a very interesting guy, and I'm
Thank you.
excited to delve into talk some stories. Can you just for the audience, can you give a brief overview? One, how old are you, and two, just a bit about yourself.
Sure. Okay, well, I'm going to be 76 next week on the 18th. I was born and raised in Colorado. I grew up in Durango, and I'm from this old pioneer ranching family on both sides. Like, one thing that I don't think there's very many people like me. I'm I have great 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 grandparents on both sides, my mother's and father's sides, who came to Colorado. So
Nice.
1859 for two sets of them, and 1866 for another set. So that's kind of this thing about me that's kind of unusual, I think. Um, and when I grew up in Durango, then I went to Colorado State University undergraduate, and in 1971 I graduated from there and moved to New England because I just had this idea that I would really like it, and I did really like it in New England. Ended up going to graduate school in social work at Smith College, which is in Northampton, Massachusetts. And I got my MSW then, and then moved back to Durango, thinking, and I ended up being local boy makes good. I'd been a EMT at the hospital for a while when before I went off to grad school. I'd come back to Durango from Massachusetts for a while. And then I just I went back, but it just was I was restless there. It's a beautiful town. I love Durango so much, but I just felt like I needed to move away. So I moved up to Boulder in 1977. And so I've been here for almost 50 years
Nice.
and got married a couple of years into that. Well, 4 years, I guess. 1981, I got married and ended up having two children. They're both in their 40s now, and they both live fairly close by. I was surprised. Oh, then I went on and got my PhD from Smith. I forgot that part. That's a
Yeah,
big. That's a
it's
big deal.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
uh, and it's because my ex-wife was in a graduate program in education administration. She says, "I'm going to drop out of this. I don't like it." I said, "Oh, you should get your PhD." She says, "Well, if you're so interested in PhDs, why don't you get one?" So,
Yeah.
so that's what I ended up doing.
Nice.
And then I started a private practice once I'd completed my PhD here in Boulder, and practiced altogether, counting my Durango and my Boulder times, 45 years practicing as a therapist. My specialty was child custody evaluation. So they were court appointed when there was the parents could not decide on what would be a good parenting plan. So
Mm.
that was a big part of my practice.
So what initially drew you to social work, before you got into it? Like,
Oh, yeah, that's it.
was,
Well, when I was in high school, I found this paperback book called Great Cases in Psychoanalysis. And it was like this is back in the, I don't know, early 60s. So the cover was this really lurid photo, and it was this woman sort of half dressed who had pizza boxes and fried chicken and stuff just strewn, and it was a story about bulimia. That was what the story was about. But
nice.
anyways, something about that psychoanalysis
Yeah.
book really got me inspired.
Mm.
And then I did some other like summer programs and stuff, and I just ended up thinking that the social work, their approach, which was called person and environment, both the internal and external impacts, systems theory and psychodynamic theory, those sorts of things, were all, I liked the way that they integrated that. And they wrote the most interesting case studies, I thought, as well. So I decided I was going to go to social work school. And Smith is just very well known for having a clinical social work program.
Mm.
So that was why I ended up going there.
And so when you're in there with your clients or with your patients, and are you there with both of the parents? And so how does that dynamic work?
Oh, you mean you're talking about the child custody?
Yeah, the child custody.
Yeah. Well, there are a series of things you do. You make home visits at each parent's home when the child is there.
Okay.
You talk to other people like teachers or friends, neighbors, whoever the parents list as important people to contact.
Mm.
I have a couple of sessions with the child alone, usually, depending on how old they are. And then I have a series of appointments with the parents, and that varies. It depends on how many questions I have or just how thorny is this problem.
Sure.
And then there's a list of requirements that you have to have in your report. You have to address different issues.
Mm.
So the interactions between the parent and the child are usually done at the homes.
Cool. So you had mentioned, and I had heard on a previous podcast, that you accredit a lot of, which we'll get into in a second. You accredit your reinvention posts a few years ago, a low to psychotherapy, right? Is that the case? Following like the divorce and all these different things, do you accredit psychotherapy to
my receiving psychotherapy?
Exactly, you being the patient.
Yeah. Yes, boy. It's not exactly a requirement that therapists have their own therapy, but it's kind of expected, and it makes sense to do that. And so I've seen therapists several times. But yes, when my ex-wife divorced me, we'd been married 34 years, and I was not expecting a divorce at all. It was a total shock to me. And also it was, I don't know, I didn't realize that she had contempt for me, and I didn't realize she was repulsed by me. It was just like these things that she was saying to me were just so shocking.
Yeah.
So I really needed to glue myself back together. I was kind of shattered, and I really found a great psychotherapist. I knew a lot of therapists here in town, so I ended up going to Denver to see a therapist, but it was really worth it.
Nice.
I had that hour drive to sort of reflect on what I wanted to say.
Totally.
So it was,
nice.
So that was one piece that helped me reinvent myself.
Yeah. Well, that's great, because even just being around you, like I get the sense that you have a very positive outlook on life. I just being around you, you seem like a beacon of light,
Thank you.
And so, I'm sure following the divorce, that was not the case. And so I think, it's a credit to the work that you've done.
Well, you're a member of the City Club, and I will say that also the City Club was very helpful to me. The people in City Club, Sina, Steve Smith, who I think, all these people just sort of gathered around me. And so I was very grateful for that.
Nice. Yeah, that seems to be a sentiment that I hear a lot from a lot of people. Eddie, he drove me to the airport last week, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, man, that's my sense of community. That's the place that I go to make friends and to be myself. And, people really need that. People really need that. It's almost like third place. They have their home, they have their work, but then they have their social, where they get the social outlet.
And they kind of call it the third place. Like if you live in Ireland, you go to the pub, I think.
Exactly.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And then another thing that happens to many people, and did happen to me in the divorce, is I lost all my friends. A lot of my friends were the parents of my children's friends. So that was kind of how we had our friendship. And somehow I got sort of kicked off the bus in the divorce. But the City Club, I had been a member of the club for a couple of years when it happened. So I had some friendships, but they were my friendships. They weren't, they didn't have anything to do with my ex-wife. So I built on those, and, I really felt so, I don't know, blessed, I guess, that I had these people to have my back.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. You need a social outlet.
Then there's one other thing to add if you want it. And that was, I asked the universe for a sign. And so that was an important part too, because it really seemed like it actually happened. Besides my divorce, my father died that year, my sister died that year, my uncle died that year, and I had this, and I'd retired very early, just before that time. And then I had this really bizarre accident in which I ended up breaking my hip, and it was like kind of a treacherous situation. I was way out in the country on a country road, 45 miles. I was with a friend, but I didn't know. It was in Lubbock, outside of Lubbock, Texas, and I was very unfamiliar with that. A blizzard hit. It was the middle of the night. No one could come get me, so I had to sit there not knowing what was going to happen to me until the next morning when I got there. And then I had to be in rehab after that in Texas. Finally, I got home and I said, man, I need a sign from the universe. Everything is different in my life.
Yeah.
And there was this article in the Denver Post that said, there's this demographic. The baby boomers are still this big demographic and they buy lots of stuff, but there aren't any baby boomer models out there that are, in commercials and stuff.
Yeah.
So I decided that's my sign from the universe. So I decided to do that.
Nice.
I got a portfolio, got an agent, got some training, and
nice. Well, yeah, you definitely have the disposition. It seems to be a model.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. So wait, so when you were at your low, right, when you had gone through all this loss and heartache and physical, you broke your hip. What were some things that kind of held you, that gave you a sense of self besides the city club, right? Besides your friends, were there other things?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you
Yes.
get into those?
I had gone to the gym religiously for many, many years, and I had a personal trainer that I was very connected to, named Dan Greenbaum. And so Dan was also one of my, just knowing I could get to the gym, I sort of centered my life around the gym, the city club, and going to see my therapist once a week. And that sort of provided a structure for me, and it was a very positive thing. And I don't know, it just kept me going,
Yeah.
and it changed me. I wasn't the same person then. After that, for the better, I think.
Yeah. And so what's your dating life been like since the divorce?
Oh, well, I had I guess it depends on how you count it, but I've had 3 serious girlfriends in these
Okay.
10 years. But it's been a few years now. The last one, there's a very important relationship, and I just think the world of this person. It didn't work out, but man, I don't know if I'm not so sure if I want to have another relationship at this point.
Yeah.
It's like there's all these sayings like, women, and I try to stick with women my age. Sometimes, I don't have to, I guess. I could date people who are younger, but I sort of like to be with somebody who had similar experiences, who remembered Richard Nixon, who, the Vietnam War, the hippie era, Woodstock. I wanted people that remembered all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I had 3, I guess you'd say they were successful relationships in terms of I really got something out of it, meaningful to me, and I really felt, was it sexually good experiences and all that. But they just didn't work out. And now I'm, I don't know if I want one now. It's like I've been on dating sites and it's just like, oh my God, they're just kind of a nightmare to go through. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm burnt and I'll decide later on if I'm in the nursing home at 85,
Yeah.
the lady next door will catch my eye. We'll see.
Yeah. So how does someone of your age keep it exciting in the bedroom, keep the sex life alive? Because what you hear is that fading out in your 40s or 50s.
Well, so I guess I would call myself a demisexual. Like there's this, all these different, what kind of sexuality are you? And what that means is I am not turned on by somebody unless I have a really strong personal relationship to them. And that really is important to me. So I think sex becomes, it's not like it's not physical because it still is physical, but there's this other, I don't know, the aspect of going through all these decades. I sort of get what I really like gets honed down, I think. And what I really like is to really feel close to a person.
Yeah.
And I know that everybody wants to feel close to somebody, but it's just, It's just different now. It just feels different.
So is it you have sex and then you feel close to the person, or do you
No,
need to have to
need,
the
yeah.
opposite?
I do not go to bars and pick up people.
Yeah.
There's something about it. I mean, when I was younger,
Yeah.
I did, but I don't anymore.
Yeah. It doesn't give you the fulfillment, especially after being married for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
You know what real love is like.
Yeah. And I know what can happen to
Totally.
real love too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to talk a bit about the divorce, if you don't mind.
Okay.
My parents were divorced. I'm a child of a divorce. And so I know I have never been through a divorce myself, but I know the feelings and the emotions and everything that comes with it. How, you mentioned you didn't see it coming at all. So
No.
how, what was the process like when she told you that? And can you just walk us through like how you felt?
Yeah, it was really like I had no idea that this was happening. No, she just it's sort of weird how it happened. We were sitting at the kitchen table for breakfast, and she says, I'm going to take a look at this house. There's this housing development in Louisville that's being built, and I just may buy this house. I said, you may buy
Felt me?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
And it was left sort of vague, well, no, I want you to come and help me pick out the house, and maybe we'll just gradually make a shift over. And we had this house that we both just love. I still live in the house. It's just a cool house. It's from it's a mid-century modern style, and it still looks really stylish. And
Nice.
it's not some big, huge mansion or anything, but it's just a really cool house. And I thought, you don't like our house anymore? Oh, I want a new house. So we went through this process of picking out the tile and stuff, going and selecting it, and she put a down payment on it. But maybe that process helped her decide. I don't know. She was going to see a therapist, and she was doing some painting, and she painted this super angry photo of herself. It's just like this shockingly angry photo. And I thought, oh, she is so angry at her mother. Well,
she was angry at you.
She was angry at me. And
yeah.
It did not. I thought she was in therapy about her mother because, I don't want to get into the long story, but her mother was a very complicated person and a challenge.
Okay.
But no, it turned out she and her therapist had been kind of plotting how to get me out of there.
Yeah. Damn. It's two versus one.
2 versus 1.
Okay, so then you guys split and you go through this, healing process. What things did you learn about yourself in psychotherapy?
Well, this is going to sound kind of trite or something, but I learned to love myself again. And I learned to, speak up or say, this is how I am. This is who I am. And there's nothing wrong with who I am, because she was full of, she would started saying things like, before I knew she was divorcing me, she'd say, you have thin lips. And it was like, well, you have thin lips. Why are you saying something like that? Or you make funny faces when you dance. And so she was kind of starting to make me self-conscious is kind of what I realized she was doing, but just like making me, go, boy, here I am sailing through life, but all these people are looking at my thin lips,
Yeah.
It was really a effective thing for her to do.
Because she's the closest to you, so she knows exactly what's going to cut to your core and make you the most self-conscious.
Exactly. But let's see, there's more to answer the question. I had to fight back in some ways, and I had to learn how to do that. She did some pretty nasty things to me, and I had to learn how to retaliate. Not like tit for tat, but I had to be as strong as she was in fighting some of the stuff she was trying to do. And I ended up being successful.
Nice. Like what?
Well, for example, we had this home equity line of credit that we'd never used, but it was a big chunk of money on our house. The house had been paid off for many years. And she took out money out of our line of credit to pay her attorney. And she didn't tell me she was going to do this. Now, the other thing I left out is she had inherited and was going to inherit a great amount of money from her when her mother finally died. Her mother died at 95. She lived a long time, and her mother had been concerned when Barack Obama got elected that he was going to do away with the what do you call it, when the exemption for paying estate tax, and
Okay.
there's this dollar amount of estate tax, and she was afraid Barack Obama was going to do away with that. So she gave my ex a substantial chunk of money ahead of time, which my ex kept in her, for herself. But I didn't think about it as it's just hers or not mine. I thought of it, we had this money, is what I thought. So, but anyway, she was perfectly able to pay her attorney, and it was not the hardship for her that it would have been for me. I would have had to end up paying half of her attorney fees. Mm-hmm. So I learned about this, and I learned what to do. I just stopped the home equity. I took out the same amount of money she had taken out, and then I ended the home equity line of credit, which she didn't know I could do. And I guess it was very disturbing to her.
Mm. So you had to go on offense there for a
bit. I
bit.
did have to go on offense, and I just, I just didn't think of how I would have to treat a wife that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Let's do anything else you want to hit on there, or can we switch gears?
Go ahead and switch.
Cool. So you mentioned to me that you're a Colorado native. You've lived here for 50 plus years. You have family that's been here since the 1800s, which was, I'm sure, not an easy time to live in Colorado because it's a bunch of hunters and buffalo traders and, all that stuff. What is it about Colorado, do you think, that has kept your family generations and generations here specifically?
Oh, that is really a great question, because they both came from colonial families, from my dad's side mostly from New England, and my mom's side mostly from Virginia, but very early colonial settlers. So they were part of the, they call it the Great Migration when, heading west. So generation after generation, I think there were 14 generations altogether. They ended up in Colorado, but stopped along the way in Wisconsin and I don't know, a lot of different states. So why they decided here, like Durango, you can go, wow, what a beautiful place.
Totally.
And one of them came to Boulder. My great grandparents on my dad's side came to Boulder in 1859, seeking gold.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I don't, like, they quit traveling then, I guess this is where they ended up. Although I have relatives now who live in California and stuff, but maybe it was the beauty, or maybe there was just this, I don't know. We finally found a place where we feel settled, where we look out and see how beautiful it is. We can make good livings here. Yep. It wasn't like one of those, like a state that, well, I don't know. I was going to say there weren't racial issues, but there actually were with Native Americans.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so that I can't really say that. I never asked anybody.
Yeah, it's all right.
So I don't really know the answer to your question.
It's just, I'm curious because people stay here for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But specifically, you being here for 50 years now, what changes have you seen? Like how has the state changed in, the time that you've been here?
Well, one of the things that makes me think of is, when I was in my 20s, there's the 1976 Olympics were scheduled, the Winter Olympics were scheduled to be in Colorado, and the people of Colorado voted against it. They said, we do not want to do this. And, the rest of the United States was just like, well, what the hell are you thinking,
Yeah.
But the people of Colorado decided, and it's somehow that felt right to me that they didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Um, so there's politically, it's not a red state, and that would trouble me if it were a red state. I'm not, I don't want to get into deep politics, but that if it were, I don't know, like Utah or something, it would be, I would not choose to live in the state. So politically, I think it's great.
Yeah.
I always, when I come home and I'm on 36 and I go up Davidson Mesa and then the whole Front Range just spreads out in front of me, it just gets me every time.
Yeah.
I just love it so much.
Yeah.
I think that it's a very educated state. I
Mm.
like that that's really, education is really valued here.
Totally.
I think that the love of nature,
Yeah.
just the relationship to, the mountains and the rivers and the valleys and stuff.
Yeah.
That's really a draw, and it's really is appealing to me.
Yeah. I think coming from my perspective, I grew up in Atlanta and then moved out to Colorado 2 years ago. I lived in Denver for a year because that's where people move if you're out of town.
Sure.
It's where the young kids live.
Sure.
And then I moved to Boulder about a year ago now. And that's something that struck me was that in Boulder, there's such a high percentage of just unique, educated, passionate people. It's like a little microcosm of innovation and of people that are really into whatever they're doing. It attracts athletes, it attracts Olympians, it attracts business owners. And it's a tiny little town, not tiny, but it's a little town.
Right.
So, it's just a very interesting place.
Well, my second favorite place is New York City, because I think it isn't like Boulder in many ways, but the things that you're saying, it is the same that way.
Yeah.
The innovation, the people that have these ideas, and creativity, the ability to do things.
Yeah.
That is similar. So
totally. The big difference is the quality of life. That you almost sacrifice the quality of life living there for that. To be around those people and to be around the business ideas and all that stuff. But you don't have the flat irons that you can look out to and the sunsets and all that stuff.
I mean, I love to go to New York City and enjoy it, but I'm sure I would miss Boulder a lot if I were to move there.
Yeah. Cool. So let's shift gears. Obviously there's a pretty significant age difference between you and I. I'm 26. You're 76, did you say?
I will be next week.
Oh, nice. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
So I want to talk a bit about, generational trends and advice specifically that you'd give someone having lived the life that you've lived, having, done as many things as you've done. What advice would you give to somebody that's my age that's trying to navigate, all these different big life decisions, especially in your 20s, which is objectively you have the most going on with the most amount of decisions that you can make that can lead you into a bunch of different directions. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, when I think back on me in my 20s, and my memory is sort of creaky because it's been a while, but I remember thinking there's probably some way for me to be.
Yeah.
When I was in my 20s, like I should find how to be cool. Like I would look at cool people and go, oh, see, they're cool. I want to be cool. Or there's just something about it that I go, that's what I want to be, and sort of try to be like that other person or fit in some way. And it's not a mistake exactly. It's probably something you have to go through developmentally, I would guess.
To fit in.
But I've learned now that self-awareness and being able to love who you are, that as you learn who you are, to love yourself even more is the most important thing, that you should be who you are and emanate from that. There's this sort of core self that when you locate it, and it's not like it's bottom line, somebody, like, everyone has internal conflicts. Everyone has complicated thoughts. No one can be boiled down to one simple thing, but that is who you are nonetheless. Like, what you are is something that's like that. And it's okay to be that way. Not only is it okay, but it's the way to do it, I think.
Yeah. And did you learn that after the divorce through when you were doing this psychotherapy, or was
Well,
that something that came
well,
before that?
I think becoming a social worker, the training that I received and that helped that as well. But it really, like uh, if it doesn't kill you, it'll make you stronger sort of idea. The divorce did really emphasize that for me,
Totally.
and made it much more clear that I need to be who I am.
So in what ways right now in your life are you doing the things that are most authentic to yourself?
Well, I still live in the house where I grew up, and I love to garden. It's getting harder for me to do some gardening. I have to hire people to help me do
Yeah.
it nowadays. Um, I guess one thing that probably was a surprise is becoming the model, becoming the commercial actor in the model. Like, if I had been married, I would never have dreamed of doing something like that. It was the furthest thing from my mind to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But it was like this whole, like, there's this whole lifestyle. Who knew Denver had a fashion industry?
Yeah.
It was a surprise to me, but it's a big, nice fashion industry that's
Nice.
going on. So that was really fun to sort of meet this whole other group of people I never would have met in a million years, and really interesting people.
Nice.
So there's that aspect. I become more of a, like, let's say at the City Club they have this thing called Member Monday, and I speak out much more in something like that. I have confidence in my ideas and feel like I can speak them coherently so
Yeah.
people can understand them. So I do a much more of that.
Nice.
I speak out.
Yeah, that's great. Nice. You also have, it appears like a pretty good following on Instagram, and it seems like people like really enjoy your message and what you have to say and
Yeah.
your infectious positivity. What would you attribute that to?
Being daring. I decided to try, like, every once in a while I post shirtless photos, for example, or I do dad jokes, which are just goofy, but people love my dad jokes. I just think it's so funny. I've done little dance routines, or I'm at the gym and I'm working out,
Yeah.
It's just, and then I don't do it as much now, but when I first started, I always tried to choose a quote from someone. I'd look up brainy quotes on Google,
Nice.
and I'd sort of locate a quote. And that sort of helped me consolidate what my vision, which was to be who you are, to be yourself. And
Totally.
so and once I sort of got that down, once I had this sort of core group of followers, then I just continued. I go. Well, today I'm going to tell a dad joke. Tomorrow I'm going to do a little dance.
Yeah. So how has it been? Well, sorry, let me backtrack. That reminds me of the quote is that you escape competition through authenticity, right? So being your authentic self means that you don't have to be anybody else, and therefore you're not competing against anybody else. And then people are attracted to that sort of comfortability with yourself, and then they're like, oh, I wonder what this guy's doing today. I wonder what message he has for me today.
People are kind of curious about what I think about stuff and what goofy thing I'm going to do.
That's great.
And one of the things that it helped me a lot was people responded to me so positively, because I had come from this place where, my ex said, I just have nothing but contempt for you, and you just repulse me. And it's like, I'm a cool guy, why are you saying stuff like that? But when someone who's important to you says stuff, that hits hard. Totally. And you have to deal with it somehow. Yeah. So in a way, this helped me deal with that.
Gain some of that confidence back too.
Yes.
Speaking of confidence, you're in great shape for your age. Do you take pretty good care of yourself?
Yes, I I kind of have a belly now, and it isn't bad, I guess, compared to lots of bellies, but it's sort of like, what is that doing there?
Yeah.
So I have to grow to accept it, that gravity does do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not really overweight or anything, but it's just your body changes when you get older.
Hmm.
But that is another thing that really gives me confidence that, I have stayed fit and I've worked hard at it, but I've also enjoyed it. I really, and some people don't like to go to the gym. They
Yeah.
do it because they feel like they
have
should
to.
and stuff, but it's just, they just don't like it.
Yeah.
But I always go, oh, good, today's gym day.
Yeah.
And I sort of bop out. So I think it sort of shows that my fitness level kind of helps. It's because I have a positive relationship to that thing.
What do you think is attributed to developing that positive relationship, developing I'm really excited to go to the gym? Is it how you're going to feel after, or is it the people that you see there, or what specifically is it about that positive relationship?
Well, you're right. That feeling, the way it feels afterward is really a great feeling. But I've had a personal trainer for, I would say it must be 15 years now. Nice. I've had, and the present trainer I've had for 11 years, and I was a legacy. I was training with one of his good friends who went on to get his PhD or doctorate in physical therapy in Minnesota. So he left. So he handed me over to Dan.
Nice.
So that sort of felt good. They said, totally. Oh yeah, you're one of my favorite guys. I want to send you to somebody who's cool. So the relationship I have with my personal trainers is a really important part of it. It just really means a lot, I think, that they stay engaged. They sort of can see my progress. They know what I need to do to work on other stuff, but we're, telling jokes and enjoying each other's company at the same time.
Nice. What is it specifically? Because staying in shape leads me to think about your modeling career and your commercial acting career. Mm-hmm. What is it specifically about acting and being in front of the camera, or presenting yourself in that way, that's really appealing to you?
Well, I had never thought about it until I saw that ad in the paper, that I thought, well, this was my sign from the universe. I might as well get into it.
Yeah.
And then it's a scene, it's not like you sort of, oh, this is what photographers do. This is how they set it up. It's really interesting. And they're going, God, the camera likes you, Howard, stuff like that. So it was sort of like gratifying to get that. And people going, look at this great photo that you took. So there is something about that. But I didn't ever think about that. Anytime I got my picture taken before that, my eyes always watered and stuff. I think I was expecting the flash bulb to go off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I never did. I don't have a lot of photos really of myself before this.
Nice. Yeah. It's definitely a unique, a unique path taken, because I think about my grandfather, who's like, 82, and would he ever in his wildest dreams do something like this? No, probably not.
Well, you could probably be a model too.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you.
You definitely could.
Yeah, maybe one day, if the podcast doesn't work out.
Like what they say in the field is, you've got the look. You've got that look.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. Hey, we'll see. Mm-hmm. Cool. I wanted to ask you about, you have some pretty interesting stories. Can you talk about the bear story?
Okay. Well, I'll tell about the bear story. Can I tell another story first?
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. This is about my great-grandfather. And he came from Michigan in 1895 to the Durango area, and then married who became my great-grandmother, she was the first female settler's child to be born in that area in 1877. Wow. So they were like the original pioneers. Well, my great-grandfather had a ranch, they had a general store, they had a coal mine, and they had the post office. My great-grandmother was one of the first female postmistresses in the country, and she had a signed letter from the president appointing her.
Wow.
That's what they used to do back then. But anyway, my great-grandfather had one of his, one year, I think it was 1898, if I'm correct. Um, he would lease land from the Forest Service, and so he would have a herd of cattle over in national forest land that was adjoining his ranch. And there's this rule that on October 1st, you have to have your cattle out of the national forest. That's the lease agreement. So he goes out there to get the cattle, and he can't find them.
Mm.
And he goes, "A cattle rustler took my cattle."
Oh my gosh.
You know, he put this together, and he was able to locate the tracks. And he realized what had happened was the rustler was leading the cattle over the mountain to this little town called Creed, which at the time was this big, hot mining town.
Okay.
And it was on the other side of the kind of Wolf Creek Pass area.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, they had trains running through the country, including down there in southwestern Colorado, because people didn't have cars, and you can't go everywhere in a buckboard wagon. So they he hopped on a train that took him to Creed. He met the sheriff there and explained to the sheriff what was happening. So he and the sheriff walked up the trail and encountered this cattle rustler with all of his cattle.
Oh my gosh. How many cattle did he steal?
Oh, I don't. It's probably 50 or 100.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know. I thought that was
that's
a real Western story.
No, totally. I'm reading a Western right now, and it just is such a cool, unique, difficult life, especially during the winter.
Oh yeah.
You know, like without the comforts that we have now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a crazy life those pioneers lived.
I don't know if you ever watched 1882 on television. It's
Never.
like the precursor to Yellowstone.
Okay.
So it's like their ancestors.
Yeah.
When they first came to Montana.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very realistic portrait of what life was like for these settlers who, they had to they had to go across the Great Plains and go over rivers and mountains.
Yeah. In these wagons.
Buckboard wagons, or Conestoga wagons.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So that's story one.
Okay.
And then
you have
another story.
Okay, the bear story.
Yeah.
So this is my great grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Nelson was his name, and he was a Danish immigrant who came, and his wife was named Hattie Daly, and she was raised up here in the just north of Erie. That was where the ranch was, and Chief Niwot gave them that land. This was like back then. Her father was one of the very first settlers to come to this area, and Chief Niwot wanted to maintain a good relationship to people. And so, although the concept of owning land, was sort of a puzzling concept for him, he did say, if you want this land, you can have it, because it wasn't owned by anyone. And so that's how they got their ranch started. Well, she then married the Danish immigrant who was working on my great grandparents' ranch, Henry Nelson. They moved, and the day after their wedding in Longmont, they took a wagon train called the Bates wagon train down to the Durango area.
Cool.
So they were kind of close to this town, Pagosa Springs, but at the time, Pagosa wasn't there. Fort Lewis was the name of an army post there.
Okay.
And so Henry took a herd of cattle to sell to the army, to feed the troops. Mm-hmm. While he was gone, she went out. The milk cow didn't come home. And so she went out to find it. It was dark. It was dusk anyway. And kind of ran into a bear who had killed the cow and was eating the cow. And so she was attacked by the bear. And her dog apparently saved her from being mauled to death right there. But
goodness.
Within a few months, she was dead of the infection from the bear claws.
Wow.
And she was only 38 years old.
Oh, wow. Was it a grizzly bear? Because I know that grizzlies used to be in Colorado. I don't think they are anymore.
I think it had to have been a grizzly bear.
Yeah.
Because I don't think a black bear would. Maybe they would. I don't know. But
that's a crazy story, though.
Yeah.
Because I know I've looked at like the old maps of grizzly territory, and it was all of Colorado, but now it's they've gone up north.
I remember when the last grizzly bear was found in Colorado.
Where was it?
It was down
in San Juan,
in that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of by Wolf Creek Pass.
Okay.
And the grizzly bear attacked this guy.
Yeah.
This is like 1975, let's say, 1970s. He stabbed the bear to death.
Oh my goodness.
The bear was on top of him. It was an old, sick bear, the last of the grizzlies in Colorado.
Yeah.
But he attacked that bear and killed it.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the last registered grizzly bear.
It's impressive. Yeah.
So my guess is it was a grizzly bear,
Yeah.
but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there was just I don't know if you saw the news about the mountain lion that was here in Boulder that attacked like a dog.
Oh,
I don't know
yes.
if you saw that, but like
Yeah.
it seems to be a theme of animals. Like if they're sick or if they're like not as strong,
Yeah.
they hang around humans because it's, kind of like easy pickings and they don't have to compete in the wild as much as normal.
I have this great photograph of my grandfather who has shot a gigantic mountain lion with a Ruger.
I don't know what that is.
It's a pistol.
A pistol? Oh, wow.
And so he's kind of crouched under the mountain lion, holding his pistol with his Airedale next to it, and this gigantic. But it's like I'm in conflict about that because the idea of he was a bounty. They shot them and they didn't really it really changed the things for a while. Then the mountain lions just disappeared from there because they've been overhunted.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a very Western pioneer photograph for sure.
Nice. That's very cool. You got any other stories for us?
Well, let me see. Well, my mom used to tell stories about like they would to go to school, the old moss school, they go to the moss, and my grandparents would she had two sisters, and they would all ride this horse to school.
Mm-hmm.
And then the horse would just stay there. But a time or two, one of them fell off, and then they could trying to figure out how to get back on the horse. So there's all these sort of funny stories like that, cute stories.
It's so cool how the times have changed, huh?
Yeah, they have.
Everybody rides their e-bikes to school as opposed to horses.
Right.
Cool. So I guess to round us out, the name of this podcast is The Hero's Journey, right? And
yes.
And you, it seems like, have very much had a hero's journey. How do you relate to the hero's journey? Would you say that it's been throughout your whole life you've been on this process, or just as of late you've kind of had this reinvention? What would you say about that?
Okay. Following your bliss. That's kind of the theme of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. So I imagine that I would say that it's been emphasized for me in my last, I'm not grateful I got a divorce, but it turned out better than I thought it could.
Yeah.
Because it really opened my eyes and opened my heart, and it really has enabled me to do a lot of things that I would never have done.
Yeah.
And so what does it mean to be a hero? That's one of the questions. Like, I have my own ideas, but they're my ideas about what it means to be a hero, which is to be kind to others and be open to others and try to create something good with each person that I have the opportunity to get to know. That's part of my idea of a hero's
Yeah.
journey.
I totally get that. I totally can feel that from you. You're very, very, you have very good energy, and you're very intentional with your conversations, and with who you meet, and you're excited about people. You're interested in people. And I think that people like that. People really do. And I think to answer your earlier question, everybody makes their own decisions as to what the hero is in their life, and how they can be the hero in their life.
Right.
And I think that that's where you get villains sometimes, is when you have somebody thinking that they're being a hero, but they're actually just serving themselves, and they're actually just doing things, ill-intentional or not, that make the world a worse place.
Well, I can tell you about one of my struggles right now, if you would like.
Please.
It's one of the, for the most part, I've had a really satisfactory life after my divorce. It's really worked well for me. I've really enjoyed it. I've developed myself and stuff. But my daughter is estranged from me, and it's a very painful situation for me.
Okay.
And and I feel kind of helpless about what to do about it, because she is absolutely adamant that she will have nothing to do with me, and I don't exactly understand what it is. We
Okay.
recently had a coffee together, and she told me two stories about what a terrible father I'd been when she was younger, and I was just scratching my head. What is terrible about this? Like
Mm.
I was being a dad, yes, but
Yeah.
well, she would said, like, one thing that stood out for me was, she said, you used, if I ever got a B on my report card, you would sit me down and lecture me for hours. Well, nothing like that ever happened.
Mm.
I never ever did anything like that. So
Mm.
somehow but in her mind, there was something about, I put pressure on her that made her anxious.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I read what, like, the example wasn't a good example, but there was something about that, and I do, she's extremely beautiful and she's extremely intelligent. So I had big ideas for her.
Sure.
I wanted her to go to, uh, she, scored so high on tests, and just, she aced. I didn't ever give her lectures because her grades were great.
Mm.
But I was concerned that she didn't ever have a mentor. There was never a teacher that sort of said, you're going to go places. And she never developed a close relationship with anyone.
Mm.
And that troubled me.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe it's because she was snotty.
Mm.
And so she said I used to give her lectures about being snotty, and that I did do that.
Yeah.
That's true. I did not want a mean girl for a daughter.
Yeah.
And so that part is true. But,
Yeah. No, it's tough. As a parent, you're just trying to do the best you can.
So can a hero have a child who's estranged from them? That's the question.
Yeah.
Shouldn't a hero be able to figure this out?
Yeah. Well, she's just as complicit
Mm-hmm.
in this as you are, right? So you can't shoulder all the blame. She's also holding things against you and not forgiving you, which is her responsibility to do.
Mm-hmm.
And she's obviously not in the headspace to be able to do that yet.
I think in a way she's being protective of her mother.
Yeah, maybe.
That she's kind of taking part of the conflict and making it,
Yeah.
Because I think it was very disturbing to children to see their parents in conflict.
Totally. Yeah, when my parents got divorced, I remember I have a younger brother, and we kind of pick sides.
Mm-hmm.
We pick sides because we got along better with one than the other. One would give us the things that we wanted, and one would provide the structure that we wanted. And I see that carry out in many ways to this day, right? 15 years later.
Interesting.
Where I picked my mom's side and spent every free weekend I could with her. And so now my relationship with my father isn't as good as it were had I spent the time and had I chosen his side.
So you were 10 years old when?
Yeah, I was 10. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's just interesting how things shake out. But I think the advice that I'd give you is that she is just as complicit in choosing sides and not forgiving you. That's on her. You can't do anything about that. Unfortunately, one
of the things I've thought is, well, I could write her a letter.
Maybe.
And so I start writing a letter, but steam starts coming out of my ear. And so I go, I can't send a letter like that. But I find myself, it's so unfair. You're being so unfair and unjust to me. And that isn't going to be a message that takes me anywhere with her.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have a few more years, I hope, to
to smooth it out,
to resolve it.
Yeah.
She just had her 40th birthday.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's crazy that, she's 40, you're 75, and there's still this animosity. There's not this forgiveness, in both of your hearts.
And we were like this, when she was little. We were great
That's frustrating.
Pals. Yeah.
Well, I'm wishing you best of luck with that situation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we're coming up on time. So I always ask one final question before we round out, but if there's anything else you want to talk about.
No, I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Okay. So do you think, this is like a nature versus nurture question. Do you think that you were born, or do you think you were made? and why?
Well, you know, I kind of have this quantum belief about
Okay.
that that in a way we're living in an illusion.
Okay. Explain.
Well, I don't want to get into some like I'm not some expert on quantum theory, but
Yeah.
I just think that I co-create what happens to me every moment of every day.
Yeah.
I didn't start, and I wasn't some little homunculus that when I was born I just grew and developed this way, and this was an inexorable thing, because definitely I was impacted by everything that's happened to me.
Yeah.
But also I was impacted by how I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm creating my own reality by how I think about it. That's why
Totally.
the therapy was so helpful to me, I think.
Yeah.
That really changed my perspective, and it changes the reality. It doesn't just change, well, from a different point of view. The reality, I think, also changes
Totally.
in that. So, was I made, or
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that the way you take feedback from the world, you always have a decision as to where to go next, as to how to react to the thing, as to how to react to the divorce. Do I go down the spiral, or do I, develop myself and become, maybe even better than I could have ever expected.
Yeah.
I think we're always choosing. There's always
Yeah.
there's always that choice to be made of who do I want to be in the world. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Anything else on that?
Well, I mean, most of my family did not, move away from Durango and go to college and become professional and stuff.
Yeah.
That was my own thing. I did that all on my own. I didn't get much in the way of support or encouragement for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Cool.
All right.
Well, I think, thanks everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks, Howard.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.